This rant is directed at all of you, not just the conservatives. So both sides of the American society seem to agree on one ridiculous notion that life today is worse than 40, 50 years ago. What are you guys talking about? That's just plain wrong. And that wrong notion inspired all kinds of crazy ideas. Some people want to go backward, and some people just want to scorch the earth and nuke the system. I can see their logic, right? If life has been constantly getting worse, it won't be long before we starve. That's just math, right? If you go all the way down, then you go to zero. So there's nothing to lose by nuking the system because we're gonna starve anyway. People are just making their political choices out of desperation. But is life really worse than decades before? Where the fuck did you get that idea? One thing people keep saying is that houses are more expensive. So I took a look. Turns out the average living space per person has doubled since the 1970s. They're more expensive, but you guys are still having a blast with a bigger space to live every year. And people are like, but we have to rent. Well, home ownership doesn't look bad either. Of course, there was this big bubble before the financial crisis, but that was not normal, and it burst for good. And then another small hike during COVID. I don't know what was going on. People got bored and started buying houses or what. But anyway, if you look at the general trend, it did not get worse. So what are you guys talking about? Some people are like, well, the blue-collar workers are worse off now because the inflation-adjusted wage is lower. First, inflation adjustment over a long period of time is very unreliable. It's useful when you look at a short period. The prices either go up or go down. But when you compare price levels today with the 70s, it's not reliable at all because people are buying different stuff. How do you compare prices of goods when goods are fundamentally different? Do you know how much this little nice thing cost? Well, it's refurbished. I can't afford a new one, but this one's pretty good. It cost me about $400. It was cheap because it was locked to a certain provider, but then guess what? I just watched a few YouTube videos and got it unlocked. This is the wonder of modern life. There's so many possibilities, so many sources you can learn from. I wouldn't trade my life with anyone in the goddamn 70s. Not even the Queen of England. If you take time machine and show this little babe to someone in the 70s and you ask them how much they would pay for something like this, it can help you go anywhere without getting lost. And if you need to stop and eat, you can check the rating of the diner. You can watch thousands of movies and play thousands of games. And if you're lucky, you can even, get laid just by swiping on a fucking app. And most importantly, there's a fucking video camera hiding in that little box. They'd be like, shut up and take my money. When lifestyles change, you can't really compare consumer prices that easily. Maybe they had some weird shit you don't have, like, VHS. But you have way more they didn't. Way fucking more. At least people back then had conversations. You mean gossiping? You think your parents held those barbecue parties to talk about philosophy? If you think the internet makes you feel lonely, that's probably because you don't remember the life before the internet. Well, the number of marriages did go down over time, which I don't think is a bad thing. People should be able to choose different lives. But also, you won't believe this. Among those who do get married, marriages actually became longer. People are much less likely to get divorced compared to the 80s. Do you know that? Divorce has been going down for 40 years. Why? I don't know. I'm not a sociologist, but this is what Google told me. So looks like people just became better at selecting their spouses. That's good, right? But how did they get better? Well, maybe broader social circles, higher mobility, better education, less pressure from their parents, or maybe better enforcement against domestic violence. I don't know. I would guess maybe cell phones played a role too. People are able to match up with someone they would not have bumped into in their physical circles. That has to be a good thing, right? My wife and I met before smartphones and dating apps, but we did have emails. That's how we started our silly conversations. Okay, without emails, my personal life would have turned to shit. So how can you claim life is getting worse when relationships are generally getting better? Sometimes you only see the crisis in your own relationships, but you don't realize how much shit was going on between your parents and between your grandparents. If you dig hard enough, I'm sure you will find some literal horror stories in your own family house. Life was grim back then, guys. You won't believe how many white housewives used to rely on sedatives. Okay, one of those drugs was nicknamed Mother's Little Helper. It was once the most prescribed drug in the Western world. A sedative. What a life! And then there's this old and tired argument about manufacturing jobs. Not just conservatives say that. I heard plenty of liberals and leftists say the same thing. This guy, Ronnie Chin, normally I kind of like him, but this bit,
So we just traded domestic manufacturing to Asia and the rest of the world at the expense of working class families.
Why is everyone so crazy about manufacturing jobs? If America had kept those jobs, there wouldn't be a global supply chain. Things like this wouldn't even exist, period. Just ask anyone in tech. If Apple had only procured parts domestically, would iPhone have been invented? No way. Steve Jobs wouldn't even think about developing a smartphone because the commoners wouldn't be able to afford it anyway. Not just the supply chain, but also the market access. Ask yourself this: how did America get rich in the first place? Just how? By selling shit around the world. America is the biggest beneficiary of international trade on earth. Your grandparents could afford a big house with a high school diploma. Why? Because of trade. Their companies probably were selling something to other countries. And those markets could all have been gone if America had chosen isolation. So count your blessings. I know some white folks are livid because poor countries have been growing faster than Western countries in the last 40 years. They're like, they must have been taking advantage of us. Oh my God. The funny thing is that the anti-trade people have opposite reasons. Some folks think trade means other countries are taking advantage of America. And then some folks on the far left think trade means America is exploiting other countries. And they somehow find some solidarity in opposing trade together. I'm telling you, no one is taking advantage of no one when trade is consensual. For the 100th time, please Google economic convergence. Of course, poor countries grow faster in peacetime than rich countries. If your country is half illiterate, you can grow the wages super fast just by sending the kids to school. It's not rocket science. But if your country is already 100% literate, what are you going to do? You have to slow down. You can't force everyone to become engineers, can you? Not just education. Poor countries simply have more potential in every aspect. They can adopt existing technologies and institutions without reinventing them. They're labor intensive, so they can produce more things with the same capital, right? Higher rate of return. And they also more motivated because of the poverty. Just Google economic convergence. It's all there. Just because poor countries grow faster doesn't mean Western countries got worse. They just reached that slow stage. They're out of puberty. Also, you need to keep in mind this little math trick. So rich countries don't really have less profit. They just have a larger denominator, so their growth rates are lower. Say there's someone in Bangladesh whose income grew by $1,000 last year, and your income grew by $2,000 in the same period. Your income actually grew more, right? But your growth rate is lower because your starting point, your denominator, was maybe 10 times higher. You see what I mean? There are things you should complain about. America's life expectancy is lagging behind Europe and Japan, sure. And there's more gun violence than almost every country, sure. And too many billionaires buying the government. Yeah. These things are shitty. But having shitty things doesn't mean life got shittier over time. It's stock versus flow, you understand? I'm a big fan of concepts like political reforms or even revolutions. Okay, I listened to Les Miserables like 100 times. But you need to get the facts straight and have a plan, instead throwing shit on the wall and see what sticks. If you really want to try something radical, my last few videos actually introduced some reform ideas regarding electoral systems, which is totally empirically based, totally agreeable to most political scientists. Specifically, Google the New Zealand electoral reform in the 90s. That kind of reform is what you need to think about, not some accelerationist bullshit.